The massive battleship drifted silently through the deep void of space, its dark hull absorbing what little starlight reached this remote sector. Captain David Wilson stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the main view screen. At 55 years old, his graying hair and the lines around his eyes told stories of a life spent fighting for humanity's future. "Status report," he called out, his voice steady despite the tension hanging in the air. "All systems are running at optimal levels, Captain." Lisa Martinez responded from her engineering station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, checking and double-checking the quantum cascade drive that had taken decades to perfect. "The power core is stable and ready for full deployment." The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They all knew what was at stake. For 300 years, the Galactic Council had kept humanity trapped within their own solar system, claiming they were too primitive and violent to join galactic society. The Council's ships patrolled the edges of human space, shooting down any vessel that dared to venture too far from Earth. But they had never expected this. The UES Defiant was humanity's secret weapon, built in hidden shipyards deep beneath the surface of Mars. While the Council thought humans were struggling with basic spaceflight, Earth's best scientists and engineers had been working on technology that would change everything. Approaching the Council border station, announced Commander Robert Hayes from Tactical. "They haven't detected us yet. Our stealth systems are holding." Captain Wilson nodded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. In the next few minutes, they would reveal humanity's true capabilities to the galaxy. There would be no going back. Picking up standard patrol traffic, Jennifer Brooks reported from communications. "They're completely unaware of our presence." She paused, listening to her headset. "Wait, I'm detecting distress calls from the mining colony on Proxima B. The Council is increasing their tribute demands again." Wilson's jaw tightened. The Council had been squeezing human colonies harder every year, taking more resources while giving nothing in return. That was about to change. "All hands, battle stations," Wilson commanded. Red lights pulsed softly throughout the ship as crew members prepared for their first engagement. The Defiant was massive compared to most human ships, but it was tiny next to the Council's border station. The station hung in space like a metal spider, its scanning arrays constantly searching for signs of human vessels trying to break free of their cage. "Weapons status?" Wilson asked. "Phase shift cannons are charged and ready," Hayes reported. "Non-lethal targeting solutions locked in." That had been Wilson's one absolute rule. They would not kill unless they had no choice. Humanity would prove they were better than the Council thought they were. "Engineering reports quantum cascade drive is hot and ready for power transfer to weapons," Martinez added. "We can hit them with everything we've got." Wilson took a deep breath. "On screen," he ordered. The main view screen lit up with a real-time image of the station. Hundreds of Council citizens worked there, believing they were keeping the galaxy safe from dangerous humans. They had no idea they were about to become part of history. "Open a channel," Wilson commanded. "Channel open." "Sir," Brooks confirmed. "This is Captain David Wilson of the United Earth ship Defiant to Council Border Station 7, he announced, his voice clear and strong. "For 3 centuries, you have kept humanity caged. You have called us primitive, violent, unworthy. Today, that changes." The station's response was immediate. "Unregistered human vessel, power down immediately or be destroyed. This is your only warning." Wilson allowed himself a small smile. "Mr. Hayes, disable their weapons and communications." Carefully. The phase shift cannons fired, sending pulses of energy that passed straight through the station's shields, as if they weren't there. The station's weapon ports sparked and went dark. Their communication arrays fell silent. "Direct hits on all targets," Hayes reported with satisfaction. "No casualties. They're completely disabled." "Send the prepared message on all frequencies," Wilson ordered. Jennifer Brooks pressed a series of commands, and humanity's Declaration of Independence began broadcasting across every Council channel. To all species who suffer under Council rule, watch carefully. Change is coming. The UES Defiant turned away from the disabled station, its quantum cascade drive humming to life. They had more stops to make. The Council's empire had stood for thousands of years, but it would not survive the next few weeks. Humanity was done being caged. Chief Engineer Lisa Martinez walked through the humming engine room of the UES Defiant, her footsteps echoing off the metal floors. She stopped at the main control panel, where the quantum cascade drive glowed with a soft blue light. The sight still filled her with pride, even after all these years. 20 years ago, she had been just a young engineer working in the underground labs of Mars. Back then, the massive caverns beneath the red planet's surface had been their only hope for keeping their work hidden from the Council's watching eyes. The Council's ships might control the skies, but they never thought to look below the surface. Running final checks on power systems, her assistant Jake Roberts called out. He was young, barely 25, but his skills with the complex machinery had earned him a place on this historic mission. Lisa nodded, her mind drifting back to the early days of the project. The Council thought humans were still struggling with basic fusion power, but that had been a careful lie. Deep beneath Mars, humanity's best minds had discovered something revolutionary, a way to tap into the quantum field itself for power. "Remember when we first tested the drive?" she asked Jake, who looked up from his work. The Council's scientists said it was impossible. They said humans wouldn't achieve quantum manipulation for another 1,000 years. The memory of those first tests made her smile. They had started small, in sealed chambers deep underground. Each success had to be hidden, each failure covered up. The Council's spies were everywhere, watching for any sign that humanity was advancing too quickly. A warning light flashed on the main console, drawing Lisa's attention. She moved quickly to check the readings, her experienced eyes scanning the data. The quantum field was fluctuating slightly, nothing dangerous, but it needed adjustment. "Hand me that calibration tool," she said to Jake. The young engineer passed her a device that looked simple, but had taken 5 years to perfect. Lisa opened a panel on the drive housing and began making subtle adjustments. As she worked, she thought about her old mentor, Dr. Richard Cooper. He hadn't lived to see their project completed, but his theories had laid the groundwork for everything they'd achieved. The Council had dismissed his papers as primitive attempts to understand advanced physics. Their arrogance had been humanity's greatest advantage. "Chief Martinez," Captain Wilson's voice came through the comm system. "Status report." "All systems normal, Captain," she replied, finishing her adjustments. "The quantum field is stable, and we're running at 97% efficiency. We could power a small city for a year with what we generate in an hour." The quantum cascade drive wasn't just powerful. It was clean, efficient, and completely beyond the Council's understanding. While they relied on massive reactors and dangerous fuel sources, humanity had found a way to tap directly into the fabric of space itself. Jake moved to another console, checking the secondary systems. "Shield harmonics are perfect," he reported. "The Council's weapons won't even scratch us." Lisa smiled at his confidence. The defensive systems had been another breakthrough, one that had cost years of secret research and testing. The Council's energy weapons were designed to overwhelm conventional shields through brute force. But the Defiant's shields didn't try to block attacks. They phase-shifted the energy around the hull, making the ship practically untouchable. "Running diagnostic on the phase-shift cannons," another engineer called out. The weapons systems were Lisa's pride and joy. Instead of destroying enemy ships, they could disable them with surgical precision. It was the perfect way to show the Council that humans weren't the violent savages they thought they were. The entire engine room hummed with power as Lisa completed her rounds. Every pipe, every circuit, every component had been tested and refined countless times. Nothing had been left to chance. They would have only one opportunity to show the galaxy what humanity could do. "Remember, everyone," she addressed her engineering team. "What we've built here isn't just a power source or a weapon. It's proof that humanity deserves its place among the stars." The Council thought they could keep us down by calling us primitive. Instead, they gave us the time we needed to surpass them. The quantum cascade drive pulsed steadily, its blue glow reflecting off the walls. Soon, the Council would learn just how far humanity had come. Their carefully maintained empire would face something they had never expected. A species that had used its prison as a laboratory, turning isolation into innovation. Lisa checked the main readouts one final time. Everything was perfect. Humanity's greatest achievement was ready to change the galaxy forever. The Council had spent centuries building their power through fear and domination. The Defiant would bring it all down with innovation and ingenuity. The time for hiding was over. Commander Robert Hayes stood at his tactical station on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching as 3 Council patrol ships approached their position. After dealing with the border station, they knew the Council would respond. But the speed of the response surprised even him. Enemy ships closing fast, he reported to Captain Wilson. Standard Council attack formation. They still think we're a normal human vessel. The Council ships were massive compared to the usual human vessels they dealt with. Each one gleamed with polished metal and powerful weapons, designed to frighten anyone who saw them. They had scared humans for centuries. But not today. All hands, prepare for combat. Captain Wilson's voice echoed through the ship. Remember our mission. No casualties if we can avoid it. Robert's fingers moved across his console, setting up targeting solutions. The phase shift cannons were already charged and ready. Years of training in secret facilities had prepared him for this moment. He knew every weapon system, every tactical advantage the Defiant possessed. They're broadcasting a warning, Jennifer Brooks announced from communications, demanding our immediate surrender. Through the main viewport, Robert could see the Council ships spreading out, trying to surround them. It was a tactic they had used countless times against human ships trying to escape the solar system. But they had no idea what they were actually facing. Let them get closer, Captain Wilson ordered. Wait for my command. Robert watched the distance markers counting down. The Council ships were now close enough that he could make out the individual weapon ports on their hulls. Their sensors would be telling them that the Defiant was just another primitive human vessel, trying to break free of their containment zone. They're charging weapons, Robert reported calmly. Now, Wilson commanded. Robert's hands flew across his tactical console. The phase shift cannons fired in perfect sequence, each blast passing straight through the Council ship's shields as if they weren't even there. He targeted their weapon systems and engines with surgical precision, just as they had practiced countless times in simulation. The Council ships didn't even have time to fire back. Their mighty weapons went dark, their engines sputtered and died. In less than 30 seconds, 3 of the Council's most powerful warships hung helpless in space. All targets disabled, Robert reported with a slight smile. No casualties. Their life support systems are functioning normally. The bridge crew let out a collective breath they hadn't realized they were holding. It was one thing to train for this, another to actually do it. They had just proved that humanity's new technology worked perfectly against real Council ships. Opening communication channels to all 3 vessels, Jennifer announced. They're asking how we did that. They sound scared. Send them the prepared message, Wilson ordered. Robert watched as the text scrolled across his screen. Your weapons are disabled. Your engines are offline. Your crews are unharmed. Remember this moment. This is how humans wage war. We could have destroyed you, but we chose not to. The Council's time of ruling through fear is over. Through the viewport, he could see escape pods launching from one of the Council ships. They were running away. Something Robert had never heard of Council forces doing before. Sir, Jennifer called out, excitement in her voice. I'm picking up transmissions from the disabled ships to Council High Command. They're telling them that we have technology they've never seen before, that their shields and weapons were useless. Captain Wilson nodded. Good. Fear has been the Council's weapon for too long. Now they'll learn what it feels like. Robert checked his tactical displays again. More council ships would be coming soon, probably bigger ones with more weapons. But now they knew for certain that the Defiance systems worked perfectly against real council technology. Picking up distress calls from the council ships, Jennifer reported. "Should we respond?" "Send them coordinates for the nearest safe port," Wilson ordered. "Let them know their life support systems will hold until help arrives." Robert watched as the disabled council ships drifted in space. For centuries, these ships had been symbols of the Council's power, keeping humanity trapped in their own solar system. Now they were proof that humanity had surpassed their oppressors. "Set course for the next target," Wilson commanded. "The Council has thousands of ships like these patrolling their empire. It's time they all learned what humanity is capable of." As the Defiance quantum cascade drive powered up, Robert thought about all the years of preparation that had led to this moment. The Council had thought they were keeping humanity safe, protecting the galaxy from violent primitives. Instead, they had forced humanity to become something far more dangerous, innovative, determined, and unstoppable. The next phase of their mission was about to begin. The Council's empire was built on fear, but humanity would tear it down with mercy. High Counselor Zixtal's face filled the emergency broadcast screens across Council space. His usually blue skin had turned pale gray with rage as he watched the reports coming in from the disabled patrol ships. The Council's mighty warships, defeated by a single human vessel, it was unthinkable. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Communications Officer Jennifer Brooks listened carefully to the Council's internal channels. Her translation software worked quickly, decoding the panicked messages flying between Council worlds. "Captain," she called out, "they're mobilizing their main fleet. All 20 dreadnoughts are being deployed." She paused, listening more closely. "They're calling it the Primitive Suppression Force." Captain Wilson didn't seem worried. "They still think they're dealing with primitives." "That's good." He turned to his crew. "This is what we've been waiting for." They're gathering their strongest ships in one place. Jennifer continued monitoring the channels, but something else caught her attention. Hidden beneath the Council's military communications, she detected different signals, messages from other species under Council control. "Sir, you need to hear this," she said, putting one of the messages through the bridge speakers. A voice spoke in broken English. "Humans, we see what you do. Council, not unstoppable. We wait long time for this. Many species ready to help." More messages began coming in, each from a different species the Council had labeled as primitive or dangerous. The Virex, forced to live on desert worlds. The Kaltan, whose technology had been stolen and claimed as Council innovations. The Jurin, whose colonies had been restricted just like humanity's. "They're all watching us," Jennifer reported, amazement in her voice. "Every species the Council has kept down. They're all waiting to see if we can really do this." The main screen showed the Council's dreadnoughts gathering. Each one was bigger than a small city, bristling with weapons that could destroy whole planets. They had been the Council's ultimate threat for thousands of years. "Message from High Counselor Zixtal," Jennifer announced. "He's demanding to speak with you, Captain." Wilson nodded. "Put him through." The alien leader's image appeared on screen, his ceremonial robes unable to hide his fury. "You primitive vermin," he spat. "You dare to attack Council ships, to disrupt the peace we have maintained for millennia." "Peace," Wilson replied calmly. "Is that what you call keeping species imprisoned in their own solar systems, stealing their resources, calling them primitive while taking their innovations for yourselves?" "We are the Council," Zixtal shouted. "We decide who is worthy to join galactic society. Thousands of years of history are about to end." Wilson interrupted. "Your time is over, Counselor. Humanity is free, and we're going to free every other species you've oppressed." Jennifer watched as more hidden messages poured in. The Council's supposedly primitive subjects were organizing, preparing. They had been waiting centuries for someone to challenge their oppressors. "You have one primitive ship, Zixtal sneered. "We have 20 dreadnoughts. Each one could destroy your Earth with a single shot. Surrender now, and perhaps we will only sterilize your colonies instead of your homeworld." Wilson actually smiled. "You still don't understand, do you? We let you catch us. We wanted you to gather your strongest ships. Now everyone can watch as they fail." Jennifer's console lit up with new signals. "Sir, the Council fleet is moving to surround us. They're charging weapons." "Get me a channel to all frequencies," Wilson ordered. "Everyone needs to see this." Jennifer's fingers flew across her console, opening every communication channel she could find. The Council's propaganda networks, their military channels, even their personal communication systems, all would carry what happened next. "To all species watching," Wilson's voice rang out across the stars, "the Council calls you primitive. They say you're not ready for freedom. They claim their power cannot be challenged. Watch carefully. Today, humanity proves them wrong." The massive Council dreadnoughts opened fire, their energy weapons powerful enough to crack planets. The Defiant's quantum shields flickered slightly as they absorbed and redirected the energy, leaving the ship completely untouched. Jennifer kept broadcasting as the Defiant demonstrated humanity's true power. Across Council space, countless beings watched as 20 invincible warships were systematically disabled by a single vessel they had dismissed as primitive. More messages flooded in from the supposedly primitive species. They were rising up on 100 worlds, throwing off centuries of Council control. The empire that had stood for thousands of years was starting to crumble. "Keep broadcasting," Wilson ordered. "Let everyone see what happens when the Council's lies are finally exposed." Jennifer smiled as she worked. The Council had spent centuries telling everyone that humans were primitive and violent. Now they would learn what humans really were: clever, innovative, and impossible to cage forever. The revolution had begun. Science Officer Daniel Carter stood in front of the main screen on the Defiance bridge, explaining his breakthrough to the crew. After defeating the Council's main fleet, it was time for the next phase of their plan. "The quantum cascade drive doesn't just power our ship," he said, pointing to the diagrams floating in front of him. "It lets us do something the Council thinks is impossible. We can be in multiple places at once." Captain Wilson leaned forward in his chair. "Explain it simply, Daniel. How does it work?" Daniel smiled, running a hand through his short brown hair. "Think of it like making copies of our ship. Not real copies, but quantum projections. Each one looks and acts just like the real Defiant. The Council won't be able to tell which one is real." The bridge crew watched as he brought up a map of Council space. Red dots marked hundreds of military bases, weapon factories, and control centers. The Council had built them over thousands of years, using them to keep other species under control. "We're going to hit them all at once," Daniel explained. "They'll think we have a fleet of ships. But it's just us, the Defiant, appearing in multiple places at the same time." Lisa Martinez spoke up from her engineering station. "The quantum drive can handle it. We've tested it in simulation hundreds of times." Captain Wilson nodded. "Show me." Daniel pressed a few buttons on his console. The quantum cascade drive hummed louder, and suddenly the view screen showed 5 identical images of the Defiant. Each one looked completely real. "To their sensors, each copy will appear to be a real ship," Daniel said. "They can't shoot us if they don't know which one is real. And every copy can use our weapons." "Operation Checkmate," Wilson announced. "We'll attack their military bases across the galaxy. They won't be able to defend them all." Jennifer Brooks raised her hand from communications. "Sir, we're getting messages from resistance groups on 20 different worlds. They're ready to help. They can tell us which targets are most important." The plan had taken years to develop. While the Council thought humans were barely able to reach their own moon, Earth scientists had been studying quantum physics, finding ways to do things the Council thought were impossible. "Begin the operation," Wilson ordered. Daniel activated the quantum projection system. Around the galaxy, Council commanders watched in horror as hundreds of Defiant-class ships appeared near their bases. Each one was a perfect copy, complete with working weapons and shields. First wave of targets locked in. Robert Hayes reported from Tactical. Phase shift cannons ready. Fire. Across Council space, weapons factories went dark. Military bases lost power. Control centers stopped responding. The quantum projections of the Defiant struck everywhere at once, using their advanced technology to disable rather than destroy. Council forces are in chaos, Jennifer reported, listening to their communications. They're trying to figure out how many ships we have. Some reports say hundreds, others say thousands. Daniel watched his screens carefully. The quantum projections were working perfectly, each one acting just like the real ship. The Council's mighty military machine was falling apart, unable to fight an enemy that could be everywhere at once. Message from High Counselor Zixtal, Jennifer announced. He's offering to negotiate. Ignore it, Wilson commanded. We're not done yet. Daniel, start the second wave. More quantum projections appeared, targeting the Council's shipyards and repair facilities. The Council had spent centuries building their fleet. Now they watched helplessly as humanity's technology shut it all down. Sir, Jennifer called out suddenly. The Vyrix rebels have taken control of their homeworld. The Kaltan are rising up too. The Council's forces can't stop them. They're too busy trying to fight our projections. Daniel felt pride swelling in his chest. This was why they had worked so hard, spent so many years developing the quantum technology. Not just to free humanity, but to free every species the Council had oppressed. Council emergency broadcast, Jennifer reported. They're ordering all their forces to retreat to the capital world. They're abandoning their military bases. Perfect, Wilson said with a smile. They're doing exactly what we wanted. Gather all their remaining ships in one place. Daniel looked at the strategic display. The Council was falling back, giving up their hold on dozens of worlds. They didn't understand that they were walking right into humanity's trap. Prepare for the final phase, Wilson ordered. It's time to end the Council's reign once and for all. The quantum cascade drive hummed steadily as the Defiant and its hundreds of projections continued their work. The Council had ruled through force and fear for thousands of years. Humanity was bringing them down with science and strategy. The end was near. Lieutenant Ashley Cooper hurried through the Defiant's diplomatic center, surrounded by holographic screens showing transmissions from across the galaxy. As the ship's diplomatic officer, she had spent the last 3 days talking with representatives from every species the Council had oppressed. The Vyrix fleet has secured their sector, she reported to Captain Wilson. Their ships are old, but they know how to fight. The Council never expected them to rise up. The diplomatic center had become the heart of the revolution. Faces of different alien species filled the screens, some scaly, some furry, some with multiple eyes or strange colors. All of them had suffered under Council rule, and all of them were now fighting for freedom. The Kaltan engineers are helping other species reactivate their old ships. Ashley continued, brushing her red hair back from her face. The Council told everyone they were too primitive to have a fleet. Turns out they were wrong about that too. Captain Wilson nodded, watching the screens. How many species have joined us? 27 so far, Ashley replied with a smile. And more coming in every hour. The Council kept them all separate, made them think they were alone. Now they're working together. One of the screens lit up with an urgent message. A Juran leader, his cat-like face, marked with battle scars, appeared. Humans, we have taken control of 3 Council weapon facilities. Their guards surrendered when they saw your ships. Ashley knew they were seeing the quantum projections of the Defiant, but the effect was the same. The Council's forces were giving up rather than face humanity's advanced technology. The Nexeri have joined the Alliance, another message announced. The speaker was a crystalline being who sparkled as she spoke. We bring 400 ships, old but still working. The Council thought they had destroyed them all. Messages kept coming in from across the galaxy. Species that the Council had labeled as primitive or dangerous were revealing hidden strengths. Some had kept old technology working in secret. Others had developed new ways to fight. All of them had been waiting for a chance to break free. Lieutenant Cooper, Captain Wilson said, "Start organizing them into a proper alliance. We need coordination, not chaos." Ashley nodded and got to work. She had trained for years for this moment, studying the languages and cultures of other species. The Council had forced everyone to use their language and follow their rules. Now each species could be itself. "Attention all resistance forces," she broadcast. "This is Lieutenant Ashley Cooper of the UES Defiant. We need to work together. Share your strengths. Help each other." The Council kept us apart because they feared what we could do together. The responses came quickly. The Vuriks offered their fighting skills. The Kaltans shared their engineering knowledge. The Juran provided strategic information about Council weaknesses. Each species brought something valuable to the Alliance. Council ships are retreating from the Outer Rim, Jennifer Brooks reported from communications. They're abandoning whole sectors to fall back to their core worlds. Ashley watched as more rebellion reports came in. On 100 worlds, people were rising up against Council control. The quantum projections of the Defiant gave them courage, showing that the Council's power wasn't absolute. "We're getting surrender messages from Council officials on dozens of worlds," Ashley reported. "They're asking to join the Alliance. They say they never agreed with how the Council treated other species." Captain Wilson considered this. "Accept their surrenders, but watch them carefully. We're building something new here. We need to do it right." A new message appeared on the main screen. A group of Council scientists, their faces nervous but determined. "We want to help," their leader said. "The Council kept much of our research secret, told us we couldn't share it with primitive species. We don't believe that anymore." Ashley felt hope growing as she coordinated between the different groups. The Council had ruled through division and fear, keeping species separate and weak. But they had created something they didn't expect. A galaxy full of survivors who knew how to resist, how to endure, how to wait for their chance. "The Alliance fleet is forming up," she reported, watching the tactical displays. Thousands of ships, old and new, large and small, were gathering. "They're ready to help us take the Council capital." Captain Wilson nodded. "Tell them to prepare for the final battle. The Council is about to learn what happens when you unite the people you tried to keep divided." Ashley sent the orders, watching as the Alliance fleet moved into position. The Council had spent thousands of years building their empire of fear. Humanity had helped break it in less than a week. The real victory wasn't in defeating the Council's ships. It was in bringing together all the species they had tried to keep apart. The galaxy would never be the same. The Council capital world filled the Defiant's main view screen. Once, its gleaming towers and massive defense platforms had seemed unbeatable. Now, surrounded by the combined fleet of the new Alliance, it looked small and vulnerable. Captain David Wilson stood on his bridge for the last time as a warrior. After this day, he hoped to never fire another shot. "Status report," he ordered. "Alliance ships are in position." Robert Hayes reported from Tactical. "The Vuriks battleships, Kaltan cruisers, and Juran strike craft are all ready, plus about 2,000 more ships from 30 different species." Jennifer Brooks spoke up from communications. Message from High Counselor Zixtal. She paused, surprised. "He's begging to negotiate. Says he'll give humans whatever they want if we call off our attack." Wilson shook his head. "This isn't about humans anymore. Put me through to all channels, Council frequencies, Alliance ships, everyone." The captain took a deep breath, knowing his next words would be heard across the galaxy. "This is Captain David Wilson of the UES Defiant. For thousands of years, the Council has ruled through fear and lies. They called us primitive. They kept us separate. They stole our innovations and used them against us." He looked around at his crew, humans who had worked their whole lives for this moment. But they made a mistake. They thought keeping us isolated would make us weak. Instead, it made us stronger. Each species found its own way to survive, to grow, to prepare for this day. On the view screen, he could see council ships moving into defensive positions. They still had hundreds of warships, but they were facing thousands of alliance vessels crewed by people who had waited generations for this chance. To the council forces, Wilson continued, "You have a choice. Surrender and help us build something better, or fire on ships crewed by the people you've oppressed, and show the galaxy that everything we said about you was true." Lisa Martinez called out from engineering, "Sir, they're powering up their weapons. All ships, hold position." Wilson ordered, "Let them make the first move." Everyone watched as the council fleet's weapons charged. These were the same ships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. But something was different now. "Sir," Jennifer reported excitedly, "council ships are standing down. Their crews are refusing to fire. They're asking to join the alliance." Wilson smiled as he watched council warship after warship lower their shields. The mighty empire wasn't falling to superior weapons or tactics. It was falling because its own people had finally seen the truth. Multiple transmissions from the capital, Jennifer continued. Government buildings are being taken over by their own staff. The council members are being arrested by their own security forces. The bridge crew cheered as more reports came in. Across the council capital, people were rising up. Not violently, but peacefully. The council's power had always depended on people following orders without question. That time was over. Message from the new provisional government. Ashley Cooper announced from her diplomatic station. They're asking for our help to organize a true galactic alliance. One where all species have an equal voice. Wilson nodded. Tell them we accept. And inform all ships. No revenge attacks. No destruction. We're better than that. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Council leaders were taken into custody. Ancient records were opened, revealing centuries of lies and manipulation. But there was no violence, no destruction. The empire ended not with a bang, but with people simply refusing to obey its orders anymore. Later, standing in the Grand Council chamber, Wilson faced representatives from over 50 species. Some had been council members, others had been labeled as primitives. Now they sat together as equals. "The council's time is over," he announced. "But we're not here for revenge. We're here to build something new, something better." Each of us was called primitive. Each of us proved that label wrong. Now we'll show the galaxy what we can do together. The chamber erupted in cheers. Species that had been kept apart for centuries were working together, sharing ideas and technologies. The council had feared this exact moment. Different species uniting, combining their strengths. On the Defiant, now parked in a place of honor above the capital, the quantum cascade drive powered down for the first time in weeks. The ship that had been built for war had helped bring peace instead. The council had spent thousands of years asking if other species were worthy to join galactic society. In the end, it turned out they were asking the wrong question. The real question was, had the council ever been worthy to lead them? The answer was clear. The age of fear was over. The age of cooperation had begun.